In feudal Japan, there lived a young swordsman named Takeshi who trained harder than anyone in his dojo. Every morning before dawn, he practiced his strikes. Every evening after sunset, he studied strategy. He memorized hundreds of techniques, analyzed countless battle scenarios, and could recite the teachings of every master. Yet, when he stepped into his first real duel, something terrible happened. His mind flooded with questions. Should I use the technique I learned last week? What if my opponent expects that move? What if I fail? What if everyone sees me lose? In that moment of overthinking, his opponent struck. Takeshi survived, but he learned a devastating truth. All his knowledge, all his preparation, all his thinking had become his greatest enemy. His teacher later told him something that changed everything. The mind that defeats you is your own mind. The greatest swordsman is not the one who thinks the fastest, but the one who does not think at all. This is the ancient principle of Mushin, and it holds the secret to unstoppable focus in a world designed to scatter your attention. Today, we're going to explore what the samurai discovered centuries ago about the mind, and how you can apply this wisdom to master anything you do. Whether you're trying to excel at work, improve your skills, or simply stop being paralyzed by overthinking, understanding Mushin will transform how you show up in the world. So what exactly is Mushin? The word itself breaks down into two parts. Mu meaning nothing or without, and Shin meaning mind or heart. But here's where most people get confused. Mushin does not mean having an empty head or being unconscious. It does not mean zoning out or thinking about nothing. Instead, Mushin refers to a mind that is completely free. Free from self-doubt, free from fear of failure, free from the constant internal conversation that questions every action, free from the hesitation that comes from overthinking. It is a state where your awareness is so complete and so present that there is no gap between perception and action. You see, you respond, no delay, no interference, no second guessing. The legendary Zen master Taekwan Soho, who taught many samurai, described it this way. The mind must always be in the state of flowing, for when it stops anywhere, that means the flow is interrupted, and it is this interruption that is injurious to the well-being of the mind. In the case of the swordsman, it means death. Think about that for a moment. When your mind stops to think during action, you've already lost. This wasn't just philosophy for the samurai, it was survival. In combat, the warrior who hesitated to think was the warrior who died. The opponent's sword moved faster than conscious thought. By the time you analyzed what technique to use, the fight was over. This created a fascinating problem. How do you train for something that requires not thinking? How do you prepare to act without preparation? The answer lies in understanding what Mushin really is, and more importantly, what it is not. Mushin is not mindlessness. When you're scrolling through your phone without paying attention, that's not Mushin. When you're daydreaming while someone talks to you, that's not Mushin. These are states of disconnection, of being mentally absent. Mushin is the complete opposite. It is a state of heightened awareness, where every sense is alert and every perception is crystal clear. The difference is that there's no mental story being told about what you're perceiving. You experience reality directly, without the filter of judgment, analysis, or internal commentary. A samurai in Mushin could see the slightest movement of his opponent's shoulder, feel the shift in the air, hear the whisper of cloth, and respond instantly. He wasn't thinking about these things. He was experiencing them and responding from a place deeper than conscious thought. Modern psychology has actually caught up with what the samurai knew centuries ago. Today, researchers call this state flow, or being in the zone. Athletes describe it as that magical moment when the game slows down and everything becomes easy. Musicians talk about losing themselves in the music, where their fingers move without conscious direction. Writers speak of words flowing onto the page without effort. But here's what most modern explanations miss. Flow is not just about peak performance. It's about the fundamental relationship between your thinking mind and your ability to act. And this is where the samurai wisdom becomes incredibly practical for your daily life. Think about the last time you had to give a presentation or speak in public. If you're like most people, your mind was full of worry about what others think, full of fear about forgetting your words, full of judgment about how you sound, full of thoughts about thoughts. This mental noise is the opposite of Mushin. It's what happens when the mind becomes stuck, when it fixates on itself rather than flowing with the activity. The same thing happens when you're trying to learn a new skill. You're so focused on not making mistakes, so aware of yourself, so busy thinking about whether you're doing it right, that you can't actually do it. Your mind is clogged with self-consciousness. This is why children often learn faster than adults. Their minds haven't yet learned to get in their own way. Now, let me share something that might surprise you. You've already experienced Mushin many times in your life, you just didn't know what to call it. Have you ever been driving and suddenly realized you don't remember the last 10 minutes of the journey? You were driving perfectly, responding to traffic, staying in your lane, but you have no memory of consciously doing any of it. That's Mushin in action. Your trained skills took over while your conscious mind went elsewhere. Or think about a time when you knocked something off a table and caught it instantly, without thinking. Your hand moved before. Your brain registered what was happening. That split-second reaction, that's Mushin. Your body knew what to do faster than your mind could process the situation. These moments reveal something profound. Your capability extends far beyond what your thinking mind can control. In fact, your thinking mind is often the bottleneck that limits your performance. The samurai understood this principle at a level that went beyond mere philosophy. They built their entire training method around it. A young samurai would practice a single sword strike thousands upon thousands of times. Not to think about it better, but to stop thinking about it completely. Each repetition was designed to move the technique from the conscious mind into the body itself. From thinking to doing, from effort to effortlessness, from technique to instinct. This is why the samurai never stopped practicing the basics, even after decades of training. Master swordsmen who had fought in countless battles would still begin every practice session with the most fundamental strikes and stances, not because they had forgotten them, but because maintaining Mushin required constant cultivation. The moment you believe you've mastered something and stop practicing it with full presence, the mind begins to interfere again. But here's the crucial question. How do we cultivate Mushin in a modern world that seems designed to destroy it? We live in an age of constant distraction. Your phone buzzes every few minutes. Notifications demand attention. Social media trains your brain to seek stimulation. Your email inbox never stops filling. Your mind is being pulled in 1,000 directions simultaneously. This is the opposite environment from what the samurai had. They lived in a world of simplicity and singular focus. Yet, the principles they discovered are even more powerful in our context because the need is greater. Let me give you practical methods that translate ancient samurai wisdom into modern application. First, understand the relationship between practice and presence. The samurai train their techniques to perfection not through thinking harder, but through doing repeatedly with complete attention. This is fundamentally different from how most people practice today. Most modern practice is distracted practice. You're learning something new while checking your phone, listening to music, thinking about other things. Your attention is divided. But true practice, the kind that builds Mushin, requires that you bring your complete awareness to the activity. Even if you only practice for 10 minutes, those 10 minutes should be undivided. No multitasking, no splitting attention. Complete absorption in what you're doing. This doesn't mean straining or forcing concentration. It means gently returning your attention to the present activity whenever you notice it has wandered. The samurai called this single-pointed focus. Second, recognize that Mushin develops through stages. You cannot force yourself into a state of no mind by trying not to think. That's like trying to fall asleep by commanding yourself to sleep. The harder you try, the more impossible it becomes. Instead, Mushin emerges naturally when the right conditions are present. In the beginning stage, you're learning the basic movements and techniques of your chosen activity. Your mind must be engaged here because you're encoding new patterns. This is necessary thinking. The middle stage is where most people get stuck. You know the techniques, but you're still thinking about them while doing them. You're monitoring yourself, judging your performance, trying to control every detail. This is where the internal critic lives, constantly commenting on everything you do. The advanced stage is where Mushin begins to emerge. The techniques have become so natural that they happen without conscious direction. But you must continue practicing with awareness, or the skills decay and the thinking mind creeps back in. Third, learn to recognize when your mind has stopped flowing and gotten stuck. The samurai called this the mind that clings. When you make a mistake and can't stop thinking about it, your mind has stopped. When you worry about what others think of your performance, your mind has stopped. When you're so focused on the outcome that you can't be present with the process, your mind has stopped. These stuck points are where your focus gets destroyed. The practice is simple but not easy. Notice when your mind stops. Don't judge it, don't try to force it to move. Simply notice and gently return your attention to the present activity. Over and over again, this is the training. Each time you notice and return, you're building the capacity for Mushin. Fourth, embrace the power of breath as the bridge between mind and body. The samurai understood that breath is the one physical function you can consciously control that also happens automatically. This makes it the perfect tool for training the transition from conscious control to unconscious flow. When you're stuck in overthinking, your breath becomes shallow and irregular. You might even hold your breath without realizing it. When you're in Mushin, your breath is deep, steady, and natural. You're not controlling it, but it's perfectly regulated. Practice this. When you notice yourself overthinking, don't try to stop thinking. Instead, take 3 deep, slow breaths. Let the exhale be longer than the inhale. Don't force anything. Just breathe and observe. Often, this simple action is enough to break the pattern of mental clinging and allow flow to return. Fifth, understand that Mushin is not just for formal practice. It applies to every action in your life. The samurai didn't separate training time from daily life. Everything was practice. Eating with awareness, walking with presence, speaking with attention. This is where the real transformation happens. Most people think they need special circumstances to experience flow. They wait for perfect conditions, the right mood, enough time. But Mushin can be cultivated in the smallest actions of your day. Washing dishes with complete attention to the sensation of water and the movement of your hands. That's Mushin practice. Typing an email with full presence, feeling each keystroke. That's Mushin practice. Having a conversation where you're completely listening without planning what to say. Next, that's Mushin practice. These micro moments of complete presence accumulate. They train your mind to stop clinging and start flowing. Now, let's address the biggest obstacle most people face: the fear of letting go of control. Modern society has trained you to believe that more thinking equals better results. That conscious control is always superior to unconscious response. That you must analyze every situation before acting. This belief is precisely what prevents Mushin. You cannot think your way into a state of no mind. You cannot control your way into flow. You must develop trust in something deeper than conscious thought. The samurai called this trust in training. They practiced so thoroughly that when the moment came, they could trust their body to act correctly without mental interference. For you, this means doing the work when the stakes are low so you can perform when the stakes are high. If you want to speak confidently in important meetings, you must practice speaking with presence in everyday conversations. If you want to perform under pressure, you must learn to access Mushin in normal situations first. There's a beautiful paradox here. The less you try to achieve Mushin, the more naturally it appears. The more you relax into the activity, the more effortlessly it flows. But this relaxation is not laziness or lack of care. It's a state of alert relaxation, of being fully engaged while also being completely at ease. Think of a cat watching a mouse. Every muscle is ready to spring. Every sense is focused. Yet there's no tension, no strain, no overthinking. Just pure presence and readiness. That's the quality of attention the samurai cultivated. That's the state you're training for. I want you to understand something important. Mushin is not about becoming some mystical warrior with supernatural abilities. It's about removing the interference that prevents your natural capability from expressing itself. Right now, you're far more capable than you realize, but your mind is getting in the way. Your self-doubt slows you down. Your fear of judgment makes you hesitate. Your overthinking disrupts your flow. When you remove these obstacles, what remains is your true capacity. Let me give you a practical challenge for the next 7 days. Choose one activity you do every day. It could be making coffee, commuting to work, exercising, cooking dinner, anything you do regularly. For the next week, do that one activity with complete Mushin practice. No phone, no music. No thinking about other things. Just complete presence with what you're doing. Notice the sensations. Observe the movements. Be aware of your breath. When your mind wanders, and it will, gently bring it back. Don't judge yourself for losing focus. Just notice and return. Notice and return, over and over. By the end of 7 days, you'll have direct experience of what Mushin feels like. You'll notice that the activity becomes easier, more enjoyable, and often faster, even though you're not rushing. You'll discover that presence is its own reward. This simple practice will begin to rewire your brain. You're training yourself to access flow on command, to drop into presence regardless of external circumstances. The samurai had a saying, "The sword and the mind must become one." When the warrior stops thinking about the sword, When the distinction between self and weapon dissolves, that's when true mastery appears. For you, this applies to whatever you're working to master. When you stop thinking about writing and just write. When you stop thinking about speaking and just speak. When you stop thinking about performing and just perform. That's when your true ability emerges. That's when you touch something beyond your normal limitations. The path to Mushin is not about adding more techniques, more knowledge, or more thinking. It's about subtraction, removing the mental noise, clearing away the self-doubt, letting go of the need to control every outcome. What remains is pure action, unfiltered presence, complete flow. This is what the young swordsman Takeshi discovered after his defeat. His teacher told him to forget everything he learned, not literally, but to stop thinking about it during action. To practice until the techniques became part of him, not things he did but expressions of who he was. He spent the next year practicing with this new understanding. Less thinking, more doing. Less control, more trust. Less interference, more flow. When he faced his next opponent, something different happened. He stepped into the fighting circle and his mind was clear, empty but fully aware. His opponent attacked, and Takeshi's body responded before thought could interfere. No hesitation, no doubt, no fear, just movement, pure response, natural action. He won without effort, without trying, without thinking. That's the power of Mushin. Not supernatural ability, but natural ability finally free to express itself without the mind's interference. This same power is available to you right now, not in the future when you've practiced enough, not after you've read more or learned more. Now, in this moment, you already have everything you need. Your task is not to gain something new but to remove what blocks you, to clear the mind, to allow flow, to trust the process, to stop interfering with your own greatness. So I leave you with this question. What would become possible for you if you could access complete focus whenever you needed it? What would you accomplish if fear and self-doubt no longer held you back? What would you create if overthinking stopped disrupting your flow? The samurai answered these questions through direct practice, not through philosophy, but through daily training in the art of no mind. Now it's your turn. The path is clear. The method is proven. The only question is whether you'll walk it. Remember what the master told Takeshi. The mind that defeats you is your own mind. And I'll add this. The mind that liberates you is also your own mind. Choose wisely. Train diligently. Act without hesitation. And write in the comments, I will master Mushin and unlock unstoppable. Focus. Thank you for watching.